Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well. And this video is a compilation of a bunch of Let's Argue clips, conversation bits, responses that I've had to questions, comments, and hot takes that we have received on our Patreon page, where we do a monthly Patreon-only Let's Argue segment. Again, this whole video is essentially a teaser for that and a quick little promo for our Patreon page where you can support us and get some extra bonus monthly content in the process. So yeah, let's let the compilation begin. Enjoy, join up with the page if you feel so inclined, get access to our Discord community too. And if not, just enjoy the video. That's totally fine too. You're the best. See you guys at the end of the video. Here we go. Despite being the biggest star in the world, right, I don't see Taylor Swift having the same staying power as the pop legends of old. We will listen to and appreciate the Beatles, Michael Jackson, Queen, etc., but I have a hard time imagining people 30 or 40 years on putting on a Swift track. Oh man. Oh, dude, you must not know many Swifties. Not only does it make sense that many of them would still be listening to her music in some capacity 30 or 40 years from now, but many of them have already been listening to her for 10 years or more and are still rocking with her to this day. And on top of it, you're talking about an artist who many people are growing up on, many people are spending a good deal of their teens and their 20s and their 30s listening to. And yeah, sure, while there are definitely artists that like you look back on after you've listened to them, you know, through that time span, you're like, ugh, that's kind of cringe. Wish I didn't spend all my time listening to that. Yeah, that happens. I've had that experience personally. I know a lot of people have had that experience. But in the case of Taylor, she's got such a massive audience right now, and most people don't really look back upon the music of those golden years as like bad or cringe. A lot of people don't really ever have that coming to Jesus moment in terms of them like really kind of growing out of the music taste they forged for themselves in their teens and 20s. And the reason a lot of people listen to that stuff still past that point is like for nostalgia reasons. And again, like if Taylor Swift musically was a huge part of your life during those teens and 20s, the likelihood is great that a lot of those people are going to be sticking with her because she was just like a pivotal part of their musical diet during those key informative years. I can't guarantee the next generation is going to give a shit about her, for sure. They very well may not, but will a great deal of her current fans still be like, you know, proselytizing for her shit, maybe going at random people on social media for like disrespecting her? Probably. If you were held at gunpoint and you were forced to sing a karaoke song for your freedom perfectly, what would you choose? Like in terms of vocal execution perfectly? Or just like, I know all the words? You know what? I would not sing it perfectly, but I would sing it passionately. I gotta be me. I would absolutely sing that shit, and if I fucked up, I'd be shot and I'd be fine with it because you know what? I died doing what I loved, singing Sammy Davis Jr.'s I Gotta Be Me. What's the worst gift you can give to a music fan? An artist's worst album from their catalog or a shirt that's not even their size? I would say worst album from the catalog, though that's not even necessarily like a terrible thing because you can always like, you know, put it on for a laugh or like, you know, kind of gawk at it a little bit or, you know, maybe just like play the one good song that's on the thing. At least with like a shirt that's not even their size, you could probably like cut out the logo and like put it on a battle jacket or something like that, or like, you know, throw it on the back of a leather coat that you got like with other patches and spikes and shit like that. Like you could repurpose that shit. Whereas like a bad album, not a whole lot you could do with that, especially if you don't like not even a single moment on it. Eddie Vedder's vocals aren't nearly as warbly and unenunciated as his haters seem to think. He just sings with his natural voice. Listen to him talk. All the singers have tried to copy him, so on and so forth. No, look, I think Eddie Vedder is not a very well enunciated singer. I feel like that's just kind of objectively true. If you're picking up every goddamn Eddie Vedder lyric, no lyric book at all, totally flawlessly, which is even hard to do sometimes with somebody who speaks as well into the mic as like John Darnielle, then I don't know what your deal is. Like, do you have a degree in Eddie Vedderanese? But with that being said, I agree with what you're saying here. Like, everybody who went on to copy Eddie did a much shittier version of Eddie. I don't really think there's anybody who like was directly influenced by his style in the mainstream that like somehow did more justice to his vocal style than he did. I would much rather listen to him than any one of his copycats. Is not being able to understand the lyrics in a song count as a valid critique? I think this is a pretty good question. I guess it sort of depends on the context and the delivery and whether or not the lyrics or words are meant to be interpreted or understood on a surface level. I mean, certainly vocals can be delivered or performed in a way where it's really more about the sensation than what they're saying much of the time. This is the case for a lot of the moody auto-croon rap that we hear these days, or, you know, something like Death Grips, where you don't necessarily catch every lyric of a song on first listen, or even various shades of death metal music. And even within that genre, there are some death metal vocalists, even though death metal is, you know, kind of known for having these unintelligible, you know, deep, guttural, growl type vocals. Some artists in the genre operate in a way vocally that you can actually kind of catch the lyrics on first listen, just kind of, you know, hearing out the record, paying attention. Yeah, I mean, I think it all kind of comes down to personal preference and taste and whether or not you feel like there is any kind of like loss in entertainment value or quality within the music you're listening to with not being able to understand what the lyrics are as you're kind of listening to them. Because certainly it could be argued that there is a value brought to the table when swapping out intelligibility for a vocal style that sounds kind of weird or experimental or odd or eccentric or, you know, expresses a different sort of emotional quality than you would have gotten if the lyrics were delivered more clearly. When we're talking about the best albums of all time or best music of all time, do you think that it's correct to consider video game soundtracks in the conversation? I've asked my friends and they overwhelmingly said yes, though I think that's probably the popular opinion. I mean, I think whatever belongs in that conversation depends upon who's having the conversation. Would I consider video game soundtracks in my favorite albums of all time, you know, list? Possibly, but the thing is, I feel like if I were to kind of open that floodgate, it wouldn't really enrich my best albums of all time list all that much because while I have spent a lot of time gaming, I am by no means, in my own opinion, an expert on video game soundtracks. It's not really something I spend a whole lot of time analyzing, even if there are some soundtracks that I do have a large affinity for, a lot of nostalgia for, you know, be that Chrono Cross, be that Earthbound, be that, you know, the Mega Man series on NES and beyond, all the Legend of Zelda games. There's a lot of soundtracks that I can name. How I would square that against, like, ranking it above or below, I don't know, Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti, I have no idea. Aphex Twin predicted the campy hyperpop aesthetics by a decade with Window Licker's music video and sound, and he should definitely be included in the protogenesis of most internet music genres. I don't disagree. Richard D. James is definitely a very protogenesis type of person, but like the visual tropes that he was indulging in on that music video were very much of that time, and the music video is a satire of the pop music and pop culture visual media aesthetics that were popular during that 90s, early 2000s era. That's the stuff Charlie is borrowing from. That's the stuff many hyperpop artists are knowingly borrowing from. The thing is, Richard D. James was just giving it a nod as well, but like, you know, doing a little kind of tee-hee, tongue-in-cheek sort of thing on it and, you know, turning it into a campy kind of performance, a joke. But the thing is, like, you know, Charlie and a lot of those artists who have been kind of referencing back to that stuff, a lot of them pull from it because they have genuine reverence for it. Burial is actually dubstep. A lot of people don't get this because it doesn't sound like Skrillex. Are we still having this debate? Is this still a discussion? Like in 2024? Like, Skrillex is and can be dubstep. It is its own kind of subgenre of dubstep, and also Burial is dubstep. They're both dubstep in their own way. I don't know why this is such a difficult concept to grasp within this specific genre, or even more broadly in a lot of subgenres of electronic music. Because in rock music, you have a lot of genres where there are bands seemingly that are under the same stylistic umbrella but sound so wildly different, and yet the fans of these artists and the genres they're in more or less kind of just understand that and accept them. But when it comes to something as trivial as dubstep, we need to, for over a decade, be debating back and forth in terms of like where the fucking boundaries are and who's in and who's not. Not that defining things isn't important. You know, when it comes to musical discourse, it can be. It serves a purpose and can do wonders for musical discovery and understanding the different stylistic colors of music and what makes red, red, and orange, orange. But extending the debate out to this degree is just annoying and unnecessary. Who is saying that Burial isn't dubstep or needs to be defined as actually dubstep as opposed to any other artist at this point? Have you ever shared your opinion on Flight of the Concords? Because I would love to hear it. Yeah, I mean, I dig some Flight of the Concords. I mean, not so much the albums, and, you know, for sure, like the songs and the parodies and all that stuff are cute and entertaining and fun. And handily, they're one of the coolest things musically to ever come out of New Zealand. No shade to New Zealand, or, you know, to sort of like, you know, underrate the more serious music acts to come out of there. But I mean, you know, you have to admit, Flight of the Concords is pretty cool. I loved the show, you know, and I thought the little kind of indie comedy run that they had for a while was really entertaining. I mean, when it comes to parody music, I think there is stuff out there aesthetically that is a bit more interesting. But as far as like, you know, the artistic reference points that would often be made in their stuff and just the quality of the humor that was laced into their work, I mean, that was all, you know, good and highly respectable. And it's kind of a shame that they're not as popular or as well acknowledged an act on the musical comedy front as they used to be. James Ferraro needs more recognition as the actual person to invent vaporwave, not One-O-Tricks Point Never. James' early vaporwave stuff came out mid-2009, almost 11 months before Daniel used the Chuck Person alias with Echo Jams. I don't know, honestly, I feel like we're kind of splitting hairs here just a little bit, especially considering you're not even talking about a period of years between these two albums. They were still released relatively close to each other. Plus, on top of it, when you're looking at some of the goats of the genre, be they Vectroid, be they Daniel, be they James Ferraro, it's pretty clear that they're all very kind of like versatile creatives who don't necessarily want to be defined by vaporwave anyway. Even in my recent interview with Daniel, he kind of expressed some sentiments about, you know, him creating that Echo Jams record and it taking off in the way that it did as kind of a fluke. He didn't necessarily mean to come up with this trend or this genre. So I don't know, passing off the ownership of who invented vaporwave, at least for him, may not even be something he would have any issue with. I don't think he's really trying to lay claim to it. Even so, you can't really deny his impact on the genre, as you say here. And I'm not even sure what utility coming together collectively to decide like who really invented vaporwave would even have. I get that The Cure is a great, important, well-respected band responsible for a lot of cool stuff, but how does Robert Smith expect me to get my friends on board when he sounds like that all the way up to at least Wild Mood Swings? It sounds like what? Just like just like, you know, kind of a little yelpy and expressive and effeminate, I guess. It really depends on the record. Some Cure albums are very shouty and punky and in your face. Others are a lot more despondent and sad and spacey. Others later down the road have a very wide pop appeal. I mean, I don't know how your friends would get into The Cure. I mean, I guess the same way that most people have. The band has millions of fans. You know this, right? They have millions and millions of fans. Like, they're not exactly a difficult band to get into, a difficult band to sell people on. And even if you can't get your friends into them, that's fine. They have lots of other people who love their music. Not everybody needs to like everything. More rappers need to do haikus. I kind of feel like the standard set of syllables for a haiku, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong here. Maybe you're a super rap brain man and you can do it, you can pull it off, but I feel like haikus don't necessarily lend themselves to the types of rhythmic patterns that typically play over well in a lot of hip hop music. But hey, you know, maybe there's a rapper or two out there with just nothing but haiku songs and they fucking rule. Or maybe they're garbage. I don't know. I'm sure if I type haiku raps into YouTube right now, they're there, they exist, and yet there's not really a cell in my body that's saying, you know what, I have to do that, I have to hear this.
Thrown in the same tone as Matt Chris for agency. Little J to me, would a black community ever make up? Maybe it's Maybelline, or maybe it's make-believe, little fragrance leaf that frame.
And there we have it. Thank you for watching. It's Anthony Fantano. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, I said my name already. YouTube forever.